My name is Michael. I was 46 when I finally understood that a man can spend years acting like a father and still be treated like a guest in his own home. I had been raising Owen for almost 9 years. 9 years of early mornings, late payments, school meetings, muddy uniforms, broken phones, empty gas tanks, and promises that his biological father never seemed able to keep. Kevin was always somewhere nearby, at least in theory. He called himself Owen's father. I was the one doing the work. I paid for football registration, cleats, school trips, clothes, his phone plan, car insurance, and the gas he burned driving around with friends who probably never knew who kept the car moving. I put money aside every month for his future. Not because anyone asked me to. Because I loved him. Or maybe because I wanted to believe that love, repeated often enough, would eventually be recognized. The first cracks appeared slowly. Owen stopped asking and started expecting. He left dishes in the sink, ignored curfews, rolled his eyes when I spoke. Whenever I corrected him, he looked toward his mother as though my words needed her approval before they became real. She usually stayed quiet. That silence did more damage than any insult. The final argument began over something small. His grades had slipped, and he wanted to go out with friends anyway. I told him he needed to stay home and finish the work he had ignored. He leaned against the kitchen counter and smirked. "You'll never tell me what to do." The sentence was calm. Almost casual. That made it worse. My wife whispered his name, but there was no anger in her voice. No defense of me. Only the tired warning of a mother hoping the moment would pass. I looked at Owen and felt something inside me become still. Not broken. Finished. "All right," I said. He laughed. I continued. "From now on, Kevin can handle everything." His smile faded slightly. "Your phone, your insurance, your sports, your gas, your school problems, your rides, your clothes. All of it. He is your father. I will stop standing in his place." Owen shrugged as though I had given him a gift. For the first few days, he enjoyed his freedom. No lectures. No questions. No Michael checking the oil, reminding him about deadlines, or waking him before practice. Then the car insurance payment came due. I did not pay it. His coach needed a tournament fee. I did not pay it. He needed a ride across town because the car could not legally be driven. I did not move. He called Kevin. Kevin was busy. Kevin was always busy. Too busy to drive him. Too busy to speak to the school. Too busy to deal with the coach. Too busy to pay for anything that did not fit inside one of his speeches about how much he loved his son. By the end of the week, my phone was ringing constantly. First Kevin called, accusing me of creating drama. Then Owen's grandparents called. Then my wife's sister. Everyone had an opinion about my cruelty. None of them offered to pay. My wife told me I was being too harsh. She said Owen was only a teenager, that boys said things they did not mean. I asked her why his words were temporary, but my responsibilities were permanent. She had no answer. Soon, she was carrying everything I had put down. She drove Owen to school, rearranged her schedule for appointments, argued with Kevin, paid what she could, and watched the rest collapse. Important events were missed. A school trip passed without Owen. A tournament roster closed before the fee was paid. A problem with one of his teachers grew worse because Kevin never returned the school's calls. For years, Kevin had been allowed to keep the title while I carried the weight. Now the title had been handed its responsibilities. It could not stand beneath them. Months passed. Owen found a part-time job at a hardware store. At first, he complained about the hours. Then he received his first paycheck and stared at it like someone had insulted him. Taxes had taken a piece. Gas took another. His phone bill took more. For the first time, he began measuring life in hours worked. A pair of shoes was no longer just a pair of shoes. It was 2 shifts. A tank of gas was half a Saturday. Car insurance was weeks of standing beneath fluorescent lights while strangers asked him where to find screws and paintbrushes. He changed slowly. He stopped leaving every light on. He stopped demanding money. Sometimes I caught him looking at me when I paid the mortgage or opened another bill. There was something different in his face. Calculation. Understanding. Shame. But pride kept his mouth closed. I did not return to the way things had been. That man was gone. I helped when I was asked respectfully. I offered advice when he listened. I attended events when I was invited, not expected. I no longer rescued him from every consequence. And strangely, the house became peaceful. Not warm. Not yet. But honest. One evening, nearly a year after the argument, Owen found me in the garage. I was changing the oil in my truck. He stood there for a long time before speaking. "I thought you did everything because you were weak," he said. I kept working. He swallowed. "I thought you needed us more than we needed you." That one hurt because it was true. Not the way he meant it. But true enough. Then he said, "I was wrong." I looked at him. His eyes were wet, but he did not look away. I called Kevin my father because that was easy. He continued, "You were the one actually being one. Every day. I just didn't understand the difference." He apologized without excuses. No mention of his age. No blame placed on anger. Just the truth. I accepted his apology. I did not erase the past. There is a difference. That night, I understood the lesson neither punishment nor argument could have taught him. I had spent years trying to force him to see my value through sacrifice. He only saw it when the sacrifice stopped. Respect cannot be purchased with money, patience, or endless forgiveness. It has to be earned. And sometimes, the only way to earn it is to step back and let reality take your place. Was I wrong to leave him without the protection I had always provided? Or would continuing to carry him have taught him that love was nothing more than permission to be cruel? Peace did not return all at once. It came in pieces. A quiet breakfast without slammed cabinets. A question asked without contempt. A ride requested instead of demanded. Small things, almost invisible, but after years of tension, I noticed every one of them. Owen kept his job at the hardware store. At first, he treated it like a sentence. He came home exhausted, dropped his shoes by the door, and complained about customers who spoke to him as though he were stupid. I listened. I did not rescue him from the discomfort. There had been a time when I would have told him to quit, then found something easier for him. I would have called a friend, arranged an opportunity, or quietly covered his expenses so he would not have to struggle. That was how I had loved him before. By removing every stone from his path. Now I understood that a road without stones teaches a boy nothing about walking. One Friday evening, he came into the kitchen holding an envelope. His first full month of wages was inside. He spread the money across the table, then placed his phone bill beside it. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. "What is? How fast it disappears." I looked at the bills but said nothing. He added the cost of gas, insurance, and the new brake pads his car needed. By the time he finished, most of his pay was gone. He sat there staring at the numbers. "How did you do all this?" he asked. I knew what he meant. For 9 years I had paid those expenses without making him watch the money leave my account. I had protected him from the cost of his own life so completely that he had mistaken my effort for abundance. "I worked," I said. He lowered his eyes. The answer was simple. The truth behind it was not. I had worked through fevers. I had cancelled vacations. I had worn the same winter coat for 6 years while buying him new clothes every season. I had turned down chances to rest because his tournament was out of town or his car needed repairs. None of that made me a hero. It made me tired. And because I had never shown him the exhaustion, he had believed there was none. My wife began changing too. For weeks after I stepped back, she had treated me like the enemy. Every missed appointment became evidence of my cruelty. Every call Kevin ignored became another reason I should surrender. Then one night, after driving across town twice, speaking with Owen's school, and arguing with Kevin over an unpaid fee. She sat beside me on the couch. "I didn't know," she said. I kept my eyes on the dark television screen. "You didn't want to know." She flinched. The words were harsh, but they were honest. She had seen the bills. She had watched me leave early and return late. She knew Kevin disappeared whenever responsibility arrived. But knowing would have required gratitude, and gratitude would have required her to confront Owen. Silence had been easier. Until silence became expensive. "I thought you liked taking care of everything," she whispered. "I liked taking care of my family." The room became still. "But I didn't like being treated like hired help," she cried quietly. I did not comfort her. Not immediately. Some tears are not wounds. They are recognition. After that conversation, she stopped asking me to restore the old arrangement. She began demanding that Owen speak respectfully. She stopped calling Kevin with reminders and started letting him fail in plain sight. Kevin hated me for it. He called one Sunday afternoon and accused me of turning Owen against him. I almost admired the arrogance of it. For years he had left the work to me. Now that Owen could see the emptiness behind his promises, Kevin blamed the man who had stopped hiding it. "You wanted the title," I told him. "I gave you the responsibility attached to it. I never asked you to replace me." "No. You just allowed it whenever there was a bill." He hung up. Owen heard the conversation from the hallway. For once, he did not defend Kevin. Months later, his football team held an awards dinner. In the past, I would have paid, arranged transportation, and made sure his uniform was ready. This time, Owen bought his own ticket. He ironed his shirt. He filled the car himself. Before leaving, he stopped beside me. "Are you coming?" I looked at him. "Do you want me there?" He nodded. "Yes." That single word meant more to me than every careless time he had called for money. At the dinner, Kevin's chair remained empty. Mine did not. When Owen received an award, he looked toward our table. His mother was crying. I simply nodded. He nodded back. No speeches. No miracle. Just recognition passing between two men who had nearly lost each other because one mistook sacrifice for weakness, and the other mistook endurance for love. The apology came later. He found me in the garage again, the place where difficult truths seemed easier to speak. "I used you," he said. I set down the wrench in my hand. "I didn't think of it that way then. I thought everything you gave me was just there. Like the house. Like electricity. I never wondered what it cost you." His voice broke. "I made you feel like you didn't belong in the family you were holding together. I wanted to say it did not matter anymore. But that would have been another lie told for his comfort." "It mattered," I said. "It still does." He nodded as tears filled his eyes. "I'm sorry." This time, I believed him. Not because he was crying. Because he had changed before asking forgiveness. I placed my hand on his shoulder, and for the first time in a long while, either of us pulled away. I did not become his automatic solution again. When he needed help, we discussed it. When he made commitments, I expected him to keep them. Respect was no longer assumed, and neither was my sacrifice. Something stronger replaced both. Choice. I chose when to help. He chose how to ask. We rebuilt our relationship on those choices, one honest day at a time. I once believed fatherhood meant carrying a child no matter how deeply he wounded you. Now I know that sometimes a father must put the weight down, not because he has stopped loving, but because love without boundaries teaches only entitlement. Reality taught Owen what my words never could. A father is not the man whose name appears on a birth certificate. He is the man who shows up. But even the man who shows up deserves the right to step away when his presence is treated as worthless. So tell me, was stepping back an act of cruelty, or was it the first truly fatherly thing I had ever done? The apology did not erase what happened. It changed what could happen next. For the first time in 9 years, Owen no longer looked at me as though my patience were an unlimited resource. He had seen where the road ended when my hands were removed from beneath him. He had seen Kevin's promises collapse under the weight of ordinary responsibility. Still, rebuilding trust was harder than losing it. Trust disappears in one sentence. It returns through 1,000 small actions. Owen started waking before his alarm. He made his own breakfast, checked the fuel gauge, and left early enough that his mother no longer had to chase him through the house. He stopped throwing unpaid bills on the counter, as though they were someone else's emergency. When he needed help, he asked. The first time felt almost unnatural. "My brakes are making a noise," he said one Saturday. "Could you show me what to look for?" "Not fix them. Show him." I followed him into the driveway and watched as he lifted the hood, though the brakes were nowhere near it. Months earlier, I might have laughed or pushed him aside. Instead, I quietly explained where to begin. He listened. That mattered more than knowing. We spent the afternoon working beneath the car. His hands were soon black with grease, his knuckles scraped, his patience wearing thin. Twice he wanted to give up. Twice, I waited without taking the wrench from him. By sunset, the new brake pads were installed. Owen stared at them with exhausted pride. "How much would a shop have charged?" I told him. His eyes widened. Then he looked at me differently. Every repair I had handled over the years suddenly had a price. Every hour I had spent kneeling on cold concrete had become visible to him. He had never seen the labor before. Only the result. That evening, he gave me half the money he had saved by doing the work himself. I tried to refuse it, but he placed it on my workbench. "For your time," he said. I wanted to tell him fathers did not charge their sons. But that was not the lesson we were learning. "My time is worth something," I said. He nodded. "So is your help." I accepted the money. Then I used it to buy us dinner. My wife noticed the change between us, but she did not interfere. She had finally understood that our relationship could not be managed through whispered excuses and forced forgiveness. She stopped translating my words for Owen. She stopped asking me to soften every boundary. One night, she apologized too. We were lying in bed, the room dark except for the streetlight bleeding through the curtains. "I made you responsible for everything," she said. "But I never gave you the authority to protect what you were building." I stared at the ceiling. She continued before I could answer. "Whenever Owen challenged you, I tried to keep the peace. I thought silence would prevent the family from breaking. It almost broke me instead." Her breathing caught. I know. For years I had wanted her to say those words. When they finally came, they did not feel like victory. They felt like a gravestone placed over the man I had been. I reached for her hand. Forgiveness did not mean forgetting. It meant deciding the wound would not control every day that followed. Kevin remained unreliable. He appeared when Owen's life looked easy and disappeared whenever it demanded effort. He called after football games, promised weekend trips, and spoke proudly about a son whose daily struggles he barely knew. Owen stopped waiting for him. That may have been the hardest lesson of all. There is a particular pain in watching a boy understand that the father he defended exists mostly in words. I never celebrated Kevin's failures. I did not need to. Reality exposed him without my help. One winter evening, Kevin promised to attend Owen's work evaluation. Owen hoped the meeting might help him qualify for a better position. Kevin said he would be there. He never arrived. Owen waited outside the store for almost an hour. When he came home, his face was stiff, his hands buried deep in his pockets. I could see the old anger rising, searching for somewhere to land. "Do you want me to call him?" I asked. Owen shook his head. "No." He sat at the kitchen table. Then, quietly, he said, "You never made me wait." I turned away before he could see what those words did to me. The following spring, Owen earned a promotion. He began saving seriously, not for clothes or entertainment, but for community college. I offered to match part of what he saved. He did not accept immediately. "What do you expect in return?" he asked. The question was cautious, but not insulting. "Effort," I said. "And honesty." He considered that. Then he held out his hand. We shook on it. That was how we moved forward. Not through blind sacrifice, but through agreements neither of us was allowed to disrespect. The house changed with us. Dinner no longer felt like a trial. Conversations no longer stopped when I entered a room. Owen sometimes challenged my opinion, but he did it without contempt. I answered without trying to dominate him. Respect had made disagreements safe. Years earlier, I believed peace meant avoiding conflict. I swallowed insults, covered expenses, and called my silence patience. But peace built on one man's humiliation is not peace. It is surrender. The night Owen finally called me his father again, there was no audience. No dramatic speech. We were carrying groceries inside when one of the bags tore and cans rolled across the driveway. He laughed softly, gathered them, and said, "I've got it, Dad." Then he kept walking. I stood alone beneath the porch light, holding the empty bag. He did not notice what he had said. That was why I believed it. The word had not been purchased. It had not been demanded or forced from him through guilt. It had grown naturally from everything we had survived. I followed him inside. I never told him how close I had come to giving up completely. Perhaps one day I will. For now, I live with the knowledge that stepping away saved what endless giving had nearly destroyed. But I still ask myself whether a lesson born from loss must always leave a scar. Would Owen have learned respect if I had continued protecting him, or did he need to feel my absence before he could finally understand my love? Time has a way of testing whether change is real. Anyone can apologize after losing something. The harder task is living differently once life becomes comfortable again. Another year passed. Owen kept working while attending community college. He paid for his own phone, his own insurance, and every tank of gas that carried him across town. Sometimes he complained, but he never expected someone else to solve the problem. That was the difference. Not perfection. Responsibility. One evening he came home carrying a small notebook. He sat across from me at the kitchen table and opened it without saying a word. Inside were numbers. Monthly income. Rent he hoped to afford one day. Food. Utilities. Savings. Emergency expenses. He pushed the notebook toward me. "Could you look it over?" Years ago, he would have expected me to pay the difference between his plans and reality. Now he wanted advice. Nothing more. I studied every page carefully before handing it back. "You forgot one thing." "What?" "Life." He frowned. I smiled for the first time in what felt like forever. "There is always something you didn't expect. A broken tire. A medical bill. A paycheck that arrives late. Leave room for the unexpected." He quietly added another line to the budget. Emergency fund. Watching him write those words felt strangely emotional. I realized I was no longer teaching a boy how to obey me. I was helping a young man prepare for a life that would someday exist without me. That is what fathers are supposed to do. Not create dependence. Create independence. My wife noticed it too. The tension that had once filled every room had disappeared. Meals became conversations instead of negotiations. Weekends no longer revolved around arguments over money or responsibility. One night she placed her hand over mine. "You were right." I looked at her. "I don't mean about the argument," she said quietly. "I mean about everything. I confused keeping everyone happy with keeping the family healthy." Neither of us spoke for a while. Then she added something I never expected to hear. "I should have protected your place in this family years ago." Those words reached a wound I had stopped believing could heal. "I should have protected it myself," I answered. Because the truth was uncomfortable. I had accepted disrespect for years because I believed sacrifice alone would eventually earn love. It doesn't. Boundaries do. Kevin drifted even farther away. His calls became rare. Birthdays were forgotten. promises became shorter until eventually they stopped altogether. I never celebrated his absence. Owen had already paid enough for another man's failures. One Saturday morning we were repairing the fence behind the house. The work was slow, the summer heat heavy on our backs. Without looking at me, Owen said, "I used to think strength meant never backing down." I drove another nail into the post. "And now?" "I think strength is knowing when to stop carrying people who refuse to walk." I rested the hammer against the wood. "That took me 46 years to learn." He laughed. So I caught up pretty fast. We finished the fence together. No arguments. No resentment. Just two men sharing the weight. Later that evening he handed me a small envelope. Inside was a photograph taken nearly 10 years earlier. The first fishing trip we had ever taken together. I remembered that date perfectly. He had caught nothing. I had caught one tiny bass. We laughed the entire afternoon anyway. On the back of the picture he had written only one sentence. "Thank you for staying long enough to teach me why you finally had to step back." I read it twice before folding it carefully. "I'll keep this," I said. "I hoped you would." That photograph still sits inside my desk drawer. Not because it reminds me of the years I sacrificed. Because it reminds me that sacrifice means very little unless it is matched by respect. Looking back now, I understand something I couldn't see while I was living through it. Walking away was never about revenge. It was about truth. Arguments failed. Lectures failed. Money failed. Reality succeeded. The moment I stopped replacing Kevin, Owen was forced to discover the difference between a man who shares your blood and a man who shares your burdens. One gave him promises. The other gave him nearly a decade of ordinary Tuesdays, late-night drives, repaired engines, paid bills, packed lunches, school meetings, and silent sacrifices that no one applauded. Children rarely remember every gift. They remember who remained when life became inconvenient. Today, Owen introduces me simply as his father. Not his stepfather. Not because I demanded the title. Because he chose it. That choice means more than any legal document ever could. Sometimes people ask whether I regret stepping away. I always give the same answer. I regret waiting 9 years before doing it. Respect cannot be demanded through anger. It cannot be purchased with money. It cannot be begged for through endless kindness. It grows only when actions have consequences. The greatest lesson I ever taught Owen was not delivered through punishment. It was delivered through absence. Only when I stopped standing between him and reality did he finally see the man who had been standing beside him all along. So tell me honestly, if the child you raised looked you in the eye and said you had no right to guide his life, would you have continued carrying his burdens? Or would you have stepped aside and allowed reality to become the teacher you no longer could be?